Water is a basic need for all forms of life and is all around us. As a coastal community bordered by 2 rivers, water is a large part of Groton's identity. Clean Water Ways is a new show to help promote healthy water quality. Today we're here with Bill Lucey from Save the Sound. Thank you so much for joining us today, Bill.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us about your role with Save the Sound.
So I have a unique role with Save the Sound. I came from another organization called the Long Island Soundkeeper, and that's part of the Waterkeeper movement, which is overseen by the Waterkeeper Alliance. So just in the United States alone, there's 172 of these organizations and around 350 worldwide. So my role at Save the Sound and all waterkeepers is to patrol the local waters and look for sources of pollution, and then look for ways to increase or protect the vitality of the water and the ecosystems.
So you are the Soundkeeper?
I am the Soundkeeper, yeah.
How long have you been with Save the Sound?
I've been with Save the Sound a little over 5 years now.
Wow. How did you get in with Save the Sound?
So I was actually living in Hawaii, working for the University of Hawaii. I was running the Kauai Invasive Species Council. So we did a lot of invasive species responses. And my parents are from Connecticut. I grew up in Connecticut. I had siblings in the area, and I felt it was time to come home and help take care of the family. So I started looking for jobs, and the previous Soundkeeper, Terry Backer, was really effective. One of the founders of the Waterkeeper Alliance. He had unfortunately passed away, and their board had gone over to Save the Sound and said, will you absorb this program? So they did that, and they posted a job for a Long Island Soundkeeper, and here I am.
Here you are. What role does the Soundkeeper have in helping the waters of Long Island Sound?
So the job's really multifaceted. In the summertime, we'll go out in our boats, and for one project we're doing is mapping all the outfalls in the Long Island Sound. So we're doing the entire coastline, New York and Connecticut, and taking pictures and locating every single pipe that discharges into the Sound. That's both municipal MS4 pipes, and there's a lot of private pipes, and there's industry discharge pipes. There's a number of them. And so what we can do with those is randomly sample them, and then we have a water quality lab in Larchmont, New York, and we can bring the samples there and look for pollution. We also respond to pollution reports. So if someone sees a culvert that's got foam coming out of it or smells bad, they'll call us, get in touch with us through our pollution email, and we will go out and respond, and we'll sample. And again, those samples go back to the lab. And if we find high counts of bacteria, for example, we'll go ahead and contact Public Works in that town, and we start a dialogue with them to see if they can fix it.
How many municipalities do you work with?
All the ones along the coastline, we have the potential to work with, and even inland, because all the rivers in Connecticut flow into Long Island Sound. So if there's discharges, say on the Naugatuck River, we'll also respond to those at times.
Now, I learned so much last time about all kinds of water during our last episode, one of it which was wastewater. What exactly is wastewater?
So wastewater can be classified 2 ways. One is sewage, and one is gray water, which would be washing machines, dishwashers, showers. But if you're in a sewage system where all the houses are sewered, the buildings, all the gray water and the wastewater, the sewage, are combined and are sent to a plant to be treated. If you're on a septic, it's usually the same thing, though some people will shunt their gray water to a different catchment basin.
What does wastewater contain?
Wastewater can contain a lot. So we're concerned primarily with bacteria as an indicator that there's sewage in the water. So we test for bacteria just as an indicator of sewage. Now, bacteria is a problem because it can cause disease, but there's also Soaps sometimes can have different additives to them that we don't want to see, microfibers, so when you're washing your clothes and they're tumbling around and all that water is discharged into the system, it can contain thousands and thousands of small microfiber plastics that get out into the system. We're also concerned with PFAS. That's a new emerging contaminant, and Yukon over here next to Pfizer did a study in 2019 where they looked at a lot of sewage treatment plants, I think 13 within the state of Connecticut, and they were all discharging PFAS. Now those PFAS molecules, there's several thousand different types, have been linked to different cancers, increasing cholesterol counts in people, and it bioamplifies up the food chain rather quickly. So that's something we've not fully explored as far as wastewater, but it's becoming more prevalent.
What are the different types of sewer systems?
So you have a municipal sewage system, and those are either run by the town, operated by the town, or they could be enterprise funds, which they're part of the town but separate. They have to pay for themselves. Some of them have contractors that run them. And so there's a collection system that brings all the sewage from the buildings and the houses to a central location to treat it. And then you have septic systems. And septic systems are individual systems that your house will discharge into, and typically there's a leach field. Now, both of these systems have lots of different technologies. For example, over on Long Island, they've started a program in Suffolk County to do advanced treatment septic systems. And what those do, and the other thing I didn't mention about sewage is nitrogen and phosphorus, but nitrogen is a big one. Nutrients, that's what gets all the algae blooms and all the murky water. But these advanced treatment systems can reduce the nitrogen up to 80+%, where a traditional septic system, it'll compost in there and it'll treat some nitrogen, but most of the nitrogen goes right out in the groundwater. And then when you have sewage treatment plants, there's primary, secondary, and tertiary. Tertiary being the best one that has a lot of processes that emit the cleanest water. So most of the plants in Connecticut are discharging around 4 milligrams per liter of nitrogen, which means they're in fairly good shape. You can see here the water here is fairly clean. You have good flushing action from the ocean, but you also have fairly decent sewage treatment operations around here.
What are some types of wastewater collection systems?
So those are usually pipes that bring it directly in. In the olden days, it was ditches, right? So, you know, you throw your pot out into the street in the morning, and then it would rain, go into the gutters and down, and then they enclosed it. But those initial systems were combined sewer overflows. So what that means, it took rainwater and sewage and gray water and combined them into one pipe and shoots them either directly into a river or nowadays back into a sewage treatment plant. But as have you noticed, we've gotten these intense rainstorms. And these systems are really old and they're undersized. So in order not to overwhelm the sewage treatment plants, there's still 6 communities in the state of Connecticut that have these combined sewer systems, which means when it rains, they're legally allowed, they have a permit to shunt some of that untreated sewage and rainwater directly into the Sound or directly into the rivers.
Great. We'll be right back with Bill Lucey in a minute.
Picking up after your pets is not only the right thing to do,
but it keeps our waterways clean.
More than 40 years ago, our nation passed laws to protect one of our most precious resources, water, to feed our lakes and streams, rivers flowing through our communities to the sea, to drink, to grow, to live, clean water, ours to protect.
We're back here with Bill Lucey from Save the Sound talking about wastewater. Bill, why is it important to treat wastewater?
Well, if you don't treat wastewater, it contains, as I mentioned before, pathogens. It also contains a lot of nutrients. So nitrogen is the one that really affects Long Island Sound. In lakes, it's more phosphorus. That's what causes really bad algae blooms in the lake, the harmful algae blooms. But on Long Island Sound, it's nitrogen. And when it comes out in its untreated form, it creates massive seaweed growth right in all the bays and harbors and the inland waters. It causes huge plankton blooms, which you would think would be good, but when it dies, all that plankton goes to the bottom and it rots and it uses up a lot of oxygen. And also at night, when plankton is using oxygen to as far as the dark phase of photosynthesis, you get these big drops. So when you have all this nitrogen going in, and we have a dozen temperature loggers up and down the Sound. We're monitoring over 40 bays and harbors through our unified water study. I think we have 25 citizen groups. This is all the way from Flushing Bay in the Queens up to here, up the Little Narragansett Bay. And what you'll see is these spikes in oxygen during the day. So the sewage is fertilizing. It's like throwing nitrogen on your tomato plants, which if you put too much, you get these giant plants and no fruit. So you get these big spikes. All the plants are making oxygen during the day. They'll be up to 300%, what's natural, super saturated. And at night, it crashes down close to zero. And when it gets down close to zero, below 3 milligrams per liter or less and down to like 2 or 1 or 0, that's when you see these big bunker die-offs. So you'll have these areas of low oxygen from too many nutrients, from sewage and lawn fertilizer coming in and creating just this eutrophic condition. And it's just not good for aquatic life to be over-fertilized.
So how and where is wastewater treated?
Well, it can be treated in a number of ways. So you could treat it, like I said before, in a septic system, which is a sort of a primary treatment where it goes into a septic tank and it's basically a composter, and then the effluent goes out into the leach field as a clear liquid and leaches away. The advanced systems actually have bubblers, and they'll refeed the sewage to give it more action and it gets more activity on it. And what happens is the nitrogen will come off as a form of N2, which is what's in oxygen. The N2 is the form of nitrogen in the air all around us. So that's not harmful. It goes through a whole nitrogen cycle with many different forms of nitrogen. In the sewage treatment plants, it'll come in, it'll go through the first agitation and skimming phase, and you try and remove a lot of those biosolids, and then they'll have bubblers. There's really advanced treatments called anammox systems, which skip a cycle in the nitrogen cycle. So it'll make a lot more atmospheric N2 and get it out before the nitrogen goes out into the wastewater stream. So those are really expensive, but they're the best because it's a quicker treatment. You don't have to hold the sewage for as long to let the bugs and the agitation work on it to pull a lot of that nitrogen out so the water's cleaner going out. But as I mentioned, Connecticut has really good, on average, 4 milligrams per liter. Eelgrass can survive below 5 milligrams per liter of nitrogen in the water. So our sewage treatment plants have been getting upgraded for about 20 years now through the Clean Water Fund at the state level. It's one of the most progressive funding mechanisms in all 50 states. So Connecticut's really taken it seriously to get rid of these combined sewer overflows and upgrade all the sewage treatment plants. But what really needs upgrading now are the collection systems because they're old, and a lot of them were built 100 years ago, and they were not sized for the amount of people we have, nor the amount of rainfall we're experiencing with climate change.
Do we need to be reducing our wastewater?
This summer would have been a really good idea to reduce our rainwater. We work a lot with water companies as well, and they were getting nervous towards the end of the drought before we had that big rainstorm that dumped 4 inches about being able to provide drinking water. And so if you have excessive use of wastewater, if you think about it, you're taking perfectly good water that could be used for drinking or bathing, and you're putting it into your toilet and mixing it with a little bit of waste. Now you have a larger volume of water that's contaminated, and down it goes. So, having low flow systems on the gray water, like your showers and your toilets, having low flush toilets is another good one. So yeah, if we can reduce wastewater, then that's less work that the plants have to do, and that allows them to treat a larger percentage of the waste going to them.
Now, I know you mentioned before in a call that we'd had previously regarding the garbage disposals and putting your food down your sinks. What kind of impact does that have?
So if your garbage disposal, well, it depends on what you're putting down your sink. So certain like meats and things, that has a high level of nitrate in it. So that's going to add to your nitrogen cycle. If you're eating a lot more leafy greens, it's going to be lower. And we see that with septic systems as well. How much they put out as far as nitrogen in the groundwater depends on the diet. But in my opinion, it's better to compost it or put it down the garbage disposal if you have a fully functioning upgraded sewage treatment plant, because it will be treated well in there. The best thing to do, though, is to compost it. And I know there's a few programs now starting in the state where you just remove that food waste from the whole waste stream, the solid waste stream, and you compost it, and they can make soil. I have a small farm, about 9 acres, and so we compost all our weeds, but we give all of our scraps to our chickens. They eat everything, and then we scrape all that up and we compost that with green material. So yeah, you really want to, organic matter should really be put back into the soil.
I know at the Town of Groton now we sell compost bins up at the Town Hall Annex. Folks can come and purchase them. So that would just be a good way, one more way to help reduce some of the things that you're putting down.
Absolutely, that's a great way to go. I mean, you don't want to put too much compost down because then you start getting nitrogen leaching out of it. If you have 8 feet of compost, you might as well be throwing chemical fertilizer out there too. But if you have bushes around your yard and you can put all that stuff down in a thin layer and it all gets taken right back up into the plants instead of ending up in Long Island Sound.
In the future, will Long Island Soundkeeper program be expanded at all?
Yeah, our plans for expansion, because the Long Island Sound is big, and I'm one person. So it's a little over 100 miles to go from east to west, just traveling straight. And there's, I believe, 109 bays and harbors to dip into and look for problems. So I've just hired an assistant, and she's getting really good at running our boat. So she's right now based out of Bridgeport. I have another boat up in Clinton Harbor, so I can kind of go out to Plum Island and handle the Eastern Sound. And we really want to get somebody over on Long Island as well. So the goal is to have 3 Soundkeepers, maybe a Western Long Island Soundkeeper, North Shore of Long Island Soundkeeper, and then I would just be the rover for the whole place, but focus on the East. Because there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of projects going on with water quality. We're involved with the lobster trap removal program, the lost and abandoned lobster traps that Cornell is spearheaded over on the Long Island waters. We're doing a lot of work with eelgrass restoration as well. Actually, we were just diving off of the little dumpling islands, which are just off the end of Fisher's Island here this summer, getting seeds for doing a restoration program there. And then we also do a lot of policy work. So I'm actually a certified registered lobbyist with the state of Connecticut. And so we spend a lot of time at the legislature talking about water policy, fisheries policy. The goal is swimmable, fishable, and drinkable. That's what we want our water to be. And we really need that presence in New York as well. So having additional keepers handling some of the New York legislation will be very helpful.
Well, I'm glad that they found the funding to be necessary to keep that program going. Where can our viewers find out more about Save the Sound or the Long Island Soundkeeper program?
So you can go to savethesound.org, and there are all kinds of links there. And you can type in, search for the Soundkeeper program. I have a page. We've got all kinds of blogs and mini videos. You can learn a lot about it. So feel free to visit that website. Again, savethesound.org.
Okay, great. So you heard it, savethesound.org, to find out how to keep our waters healthy. Thank you so much to Bill Lucey for being with us here today, and we hope you tune in to our next episode of Clean Waterways.
Save the Sound, a proud partner of this program, leads environmental action in your region by fighting climate change, saving endangered lands, protecting the Sound and its rivers, and working with nature to restore ecosystems.